Uros Floating Islands, CITIES built on water. High in the heart of the Andes, where the air is thin and the horizons stretch endlessly toward the sky, lies a world unlike any other. This is Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake on Earth, a vast mirror of blue surrounded by mountains that rise like ancient guardians. Within this lake lives one of humanity's most remarkable creations, the Uros Floating Islands, a civilization built not on land, but on water. For centuries, the Uros people have crafted and lived upon islands made entirely of reeds, turning simple plants into homes, pathways, boats, and entire communities. Their way of life is a story of resilience, invention, and deep cultural memory. This documentary tells the complete history of the Uros, from their mysterious origins to their modern transformation. It explores how they built floating worlds in response to danger, how they shaped culture upon water, and how their traditions survive today despite the pressures of time, politics, and climate. This is the story of a people who learned not to fight the lake, but to float with it, a people who created cities that drift among waves and wind. A world that floats. Lake Titicaca has always been a place of legends. Ancient Andean civilizations believed it was the birthplace of the sun, the moon, and the first humans. For thousands of years, its waters have carried stories of gods, warriors, and forgotten kingdoms, but among its greatest legends are the Uros. They are often described as one of the oldest ethnic groups in the region, predating many known cultures. Their survival is tied to their ability to adapt to every challenge the Andes has thrown at them. The Uros did not rise through conquest nor through agriculture like other Andean societies. They survived through creativity. Surrounded by powerful rivals and limited land, they turned to the lake itself for protection. The water became their shield, their food source, and eventually their home. While other peoples farmed, the Uros engineered floating islands that could be moved, rebuilt, and defended simply by drifting away. This mobility made them difficult to conquer, allowing them to maintain independence across centuries of conflict. The early origins of the Uros. Long before empires like the Incas dominated the Andes, the Altiplano was a mosaic of tribes. Climate was harsh, nights were freezing, and storms were fierce. Yet even in this difficult world, communities thrived through innovation. Among them were the early Uros. Their exact origins are debated, but many anthropologists believe they lived around Lake Titicaca long before the rise of major Andean kingdoms. They were skilled fishermen, hunters, and gatherers. They knew the patterns of the lake, the habits of birds, and the strength of the reeds that grew along the shores. Their early settlements were simple, built near the water but still on land. However, as larger kingdoms expanded, the Uros found themselves pressured. More powerful tribes wanted access to the lake's resources. Territories were taken, demands were made, and conflicts increased. The Uros could not match the military strength of their neighbors. Instead of fighting back on land, they retreated into the water. This decision changed their fate forever. They began building platforms of totora reeds, layering them until they could support the weight of families and shelters. At first, these platforms were small and used for fishing, but over time, they became larger, stronger, and more sophisticated. Eventually, entire islands were built, floating freely upon the lake. These islands could be moved if threatened. They could be expanded as families grew, and they could be rebuilt when storms damaged them. This floating life became the Uros' identity. Mythological origins. In Uros' oral tradition, they are not simply a displaced people, they are a chosen people. One of their oldest stories claims that the Uros were created by the sun god himself, older than all other tribes in the Andes. Because of this divine origin, they believed they could not be harmed by the lake's cold waters. They said they were the people who do not sink. While these stories are symbolic, they reveal how the Uros understood themselves. They saw their floating life not as weakness, but as destiny. Another myth tells of a time when a rival tribe attempted to destroy them. Instead of fighting on land, the Uros cut their islands loose and let the winds carry them farther into the lake. Their enemies could not follow. The lake protected them. This story reflects real strategies they used throughout history: mobility as defense, water as home, reeds as survival, mythological origins. In Uros' oral tradition, they are not simply a displaced people, they are a chosen people. One of their oldest stories claims that the Uros were created by the sun god himself, older than all other tribes in the Andes. Because of this divine origin, they believed they could not be harmed by the lake's cold waters. They said they were the people who do not sink. While these stories are symbolic, they reveal how the Uros understood themselves. They saw their floating life not as weakness, but as destiny. Another myth tells of a time when a rival tribe attempted to destroy them. Instead of fighting on land, the Uros cut their islands loose and let the winds carry them farther into the lake. Their enemies could not follow. The lake protected them. This story reflects real strategies they used throughout history: mobility as defense, water as home, reeds as survival. The age of Kingdoms and Empires. Between the 1200s and 1400s, the region around Titicaca was dominated by powerful Aymara kingdoms, such as the Lupaca and Kola. These kingdoms built strong communities, practiced advanced agriculture, and controlled trade routes. The Uros, however, remained physically separate. Their floating islands made them impossible to conquer in a conventional manner. When pressured, they simply moved farther from shore. The Incas eventually arrived in the 1400s and expanded throughout the region. Known for their administrative strength and strict organization, they required communities to pay taxes and participate in labor systems. But the Uros lived beyond the structured Inca world. Since they owned no fixed land, they did not fit into the empire's land-based tax system. Their floating life made them difficult to control. The Incas tolerated them, but mostly left them alone. They were too mobile, too unconventional, too tied to the lake itself. Throughout the era of empires, the Uros maintained autonomy not through power, but through ingenuity. Life upon the reeds. Living on floating islands requires constant work. Totora reeds are both strong and fragile. They float naturally due to their air-filled structure, but they also rot over time. This means every island must be maintained continuously. Layers of new reeds are placed on top weekly or monthly, depending on weather and usage. Without this upkeep, the islands would eventually sink. The foundations of each island are blocks of totora roots tied together. These root blocks act like natural flotation devices. On top of them, thick layers of cut reeds are placed. Over time, the bottom layers rot away while the top layers remain fresh. This creates a cycle of constant renewal. The island is always alive, always changing. Homes on the islands are also made from reeds. Traditionally, they were simple huts with curved roofs and reed floors. In modern times, some houses now include wood, metal sheets, or solar panels. However, the traditional style remains the foundation of Uros' identity. Boats, too, are made from reeds. Their designs are ancient, resembling boats seen in cultures thousands of years ago. Uros' reed boats are curved, long, and exceptionally buoyant. Fishermen once traveled long distances in them, using their knowledge of winds and currents to navigate. Ommunity and culture. The Uros society is built around cooperation. No island can survive without teamwork. Families share responsibilities such as adding new reeds, repairing boats, fishing, cooking, weaving, and maintaining homes. The lake provides fish, birds, and plants, while trade with mainland communities supplies other needs. The Uros once spoke their own language, Uruquilla, which has nearly disappeared. Today, most speak Aymara or Quechua. Despite the loss of language, cultural identity remains strong. Music, dances, weaving patterns, and spiritual traditions continue to reflect ancient values. The lake itself is sacred. Many Uros believe spirits live beneath the water, guiding weather patterns and protecting their homes. Fire, water, and reeds are the three elements central to life. Reeds represent ancestors, water represents life, and fire represents survival in the cold Andean nights. Contact with the Spanish. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they reshaped the Andes through conquest, religion, and forced labor. But once again, the Uros' floating life protected them from deeper colonial control. Spaniards focused on cities, farmlands, and resources on the mainland. The floating islands were difficult to access, offered little economic value, and were far from the centers of power. As a result, the Uros avoided many of the harshest impacts of colonization. Their culture continued quietly, away from the turmoil brought by European rule. They maintained their fishing traditions, preserved their crafts, and relied on reeds as they always had. Moving into the modern world. By the 19th and 20th centuries, lake levels changed, fish populations shifted, and more people settled near the shores. The Uros faced pressure to integrate into national economies and modern infrastructure. Some communities moved to the mainland, but many refused to abandon their floating heritage. Tourism eventually became a major influence. Visitors from around the world came to see the floating islands, and the Uros adapted by sharing demonstrations of their reed weaving, boat building, and traditions. This brought income, but also required balancing authenticity with modern needs. Despite changes, the essence of Uros life remains. They continue to build floating islands, raise families on the water, and maintain traditions passed down through countless generations. Enjourney ing, a floating civilization. To understand the Uros, one must understand the genius of their engineering. Their islands are not simply built, they are grown, layered, repaired, and reshaped over years and sometimes decades. Every island begins with totora roots. These roots form dense, sponge-like blocks that float naturally due to their internal air pockets. The Uros cut these root blocks, tie them together, and anchor them to form the foundation of a floating platform. On top of this base, they place thick layers of harvested reeds. These layers can reach a depth of several feet. The top layers stay dry and firm, while the bottom layers gradually decompose. This decomposition is part of the island's life cycle. As the lower layers rot, they sink slightly, and the top layers must be refreshed. Without continuous maintenance, the island would eventually dissolve into the lake. Modern engineers have studied these islands with fascination. They function like natural rafts, distributing weight and pressure across a flexible surface. The islands adjust to storms, waves, and wind. Instead of resisting water, they move with it. This flexibility is one of the reasons the Uros have survived for centuries. Anchors made from heavy stones keep the islands from drifting too far. In ancient times, the Uros could remove these anchors to relocate quickly if danger approached. Today, most islands remain in fixed positions for stability and tourism. The role of totora in survival. Totora is more than a building material, it is the foundation of life. The Uros say that totora is their food, their home, their medicine, and their future. Without it, their civilization would not exist. When fresh, totora reeds are crisp and full of nutrients. Children chew on them for hydration. The roots are eaten to prevent sickness. Fishermen use totora fibers as natural remedies for stomach issues. Women weave the reeds into baskets, mats, and decorative items. The flexibility and buoyancy of totora make it ideal for construction. It insulates homes, supports platforms, and shapes boats. Even animals rely on it. Ducks nest in the reeds, fish hide between the roots, and birds use it to build their homes. The Uros monitor the health of the reed beds carefully. If reeds become scarce or damaged by pollution, the islands suffer. In recent decades, changing water levels and environmental pressures have threatened totora fields, but the Uros have developed strategies to protect and regrow them, ensuring the survival of their floating world. Daily life on the floating islands. For outsiders, life on a floating island may seem impossible, but for the Uros, it is a rhythm practiced for generations. Mornings often begin with the sound of soft waves touching the reed surface. Families wake early, lighting fires in clay stoves placed on stone slabs to prevent the reeds from burning. Breakfast commonly includes fish, quinoa, potatoes, and sometimes freshly harvested totora. Children travel by small reed boats to schools located either on larger islands or on the mainland. Many learn both traditional Uros skills and modern subjects. These young generations are essential for carrying on the floating heritage. Women weave throughout the day. Their hands move swiftly, tying, twisting, and shaping reeds into baskets, mats, and toys. Weaving is both cultural expression and economic support. Men focus on fishing, island maintenance, and boat building. They often set nets at dawn and return with fish such as trout, karachi, and ispi. These fish form the basis of the Uros' diet and provide income through trade. The evenings are peaceful. The lake becomes calm, reflecting the fading light of the Andes. Families gather to share food, stories, and songs. The sound of footsteps on the soft reed floor mixes with the distant calls of birds settling in for the night. Community structure and governance. Traditional Uros communities are small, often consisting of a few families sharing the same island. Leadership is based on experience and wisdom rather than strict hierarchy. Elders guide decisions about island repair, fishing practices, and communal responsibilities. Important matters are discussed openly. Everyone contributes, including women and younger members. The community must function like a single organism because their survival depends on cooperation. If one family neglects island maintenance, the entire structure weakens. Some islands are dedicated to extended families, while others are shared by unrelated groups. In recent decades, several islands have joined to form larger clusters for tourism. These clusters operate with a mix of traditional leadership and modern management. Education and the evolution of tradition. Education among the Uros has changed significantly over the past century. In earlier times, children learned only through observation and participation. Skills such as weaving, fishing, and island building were passed from parent to child without formal instruction. Today, many Uros children attend public schools where they study reading, mathematics, science, and history. This has brought new opportunities, but also challenges. Some young people leave the islands seeking work in nearby cities. Others return with new knowledge, helping improve island life through better tools, cleaner energy, and improved construction methods. Despite these changes, traditional education remains strong. Children still learn the rhythm of the lake, the feel of fresh reeds, and the ancient songs that echo across the water. Parents teach them how to read weather patterns, repair boats, and respect the spirits of the lake. The balance between modernity and tradition shapes the future of the Uros. But a sacred presence that watches over them. Spiritual beliefs vary between families, but several themes remain constant. Water is life, reeds are ancestors, fire is protection. Many ceremonies involve offerings to the lake. Fishermen may present small gifts of totora or food before casting their nets. Families pray for calm weather during storms. Festivals include traditional dances and music played on handmade instruments. Sunrise and sunset hold special meaning. As the sun rises over the Andes, light spreads across the reeds, symbolizing renewal. At sunset, the lake darkens into a reflective silence, reminding the Uros of the deep spirits beneath the surface. Some ceremonies honor Pachamama, the Earth Mother, a belief shared with many indigenous Andean cultures. Others are unique to the Uros, passed down quietly through generations. 14. Reed boat construction. Uros' reed boats are among the most iconic symbols of their civilization. These boats are crafted with precision and skill, using techniques perfected over centuries. Construction begins with large bundles of totora tied together into long cylinders. These cylinders form the sides of the boat. Mori layers are added to shape the hull. The prow often curves upward into elegant designs that resemble animals or mythical figures. The reeds are tightly tied, using ropes made from totora fibers or modern materials. As the boat dries in the sun, it becomes lighter and stronger. Although reed boats eventually rot, they last long enough to serve daily transportation and ceremonial use. Historically, fishermen traveled long distances in these boats, sometimes staying on the lake for days. Today, some reed boats are built for tourism, while others preserve traditional purposes. Their roofs from houses or push islands off course. The Uros anchor their islands carefully, always aware of changing weather. They also watch water levels. Years of drought can lower the lake, drying reed fields and reducing fish populations. Heavy rains can flood the islands. The Uros adapt to both extremes. Their relationship with the lake is one of deep connection. They do not seek to conquer nature, but to live harmoniously with it. Every decision, from building homes to choosing fishing spots, reflects this balance. Challenges of island maintenance. The floating islands may appear simple, but they require constant attention. Without regular maintenance, an island begins to weaken. The lowest layers of reeds rot slowly due to immersion in water, and the weight of houses, families, and daily activities compresses the structure. Because of this, adding fresh reeds is a weekly or monthly task, depending on the season. During the dry season, reeds dry quickly and last longer. During the rainy season, moisture seeps deeper into the island, accelerating decomposition. Families must work together to strengthen the surface. They gather and cut reeds from totora fields, transport them across the lake, and spread them across the island floor. Children often help by arranging the reeds in neat lines, learning the craft from an early age. Every island has a lifespan. Some last 15 years, others 30, depending on the care they receive. Eventually, the foundation becomes too weak, and the community must either rebuild on top of the old base or start a completely new island. This process keeps the Uros constantly connected to the lake and dependent on its resources. Food, fishing, and survival. Food is central to the Uros' way of life. Historically, fishing was the primary source of protein. The lake once provided abundant fish species such as ispi, karachi, boga, and black catfish. The Uros mastered the art of placing nets, reading water currents, and navigating reed channels. Fishing was not just labor, but a spiritual act, performed with respect for the lake. Birds also form part of the diet. Ducks and lake birds are sometimes hunted using traditional traps. Eggs are collected in small quantities to avoid harming populations. The Uros maintain a careful balance, taking only what they need. In addition to animal sources, the Uros grow crops on small floating gardens or on nearby mainland plots. Potatoes, quinoa, and oca are common Andean staples. Simple clay stoves fueled by dried reeds or driftwood are used for cooking. Totora itself is edible. The white inner stem of the reed is consumed for hydration and nutrients. Children enjoy chewing it, and adults eat it when food is scarce. Themes of resilience and adaptation. The Uros' culture is defined by resilience. Their ancestors adapted to threats by turning a plant into a home. Today, their descendants adapt to new challenges such as tourism, climate change, and modern expectations. Resilience is not only physical but emotional. The Uros live in close proximity, sharing hardships and successes. When storms damage a roof or loosen anchors, everyone helps repair the island. When fish populations decline, families adjust their diets and seek alternative income. Their ability to adapt is the reason they have survived for hundreds of years. Uros ARTS and HANDICOFTS. Weaving is central to Uros culture. Women, in particular, create complex handicrafts that reflect their history and identity. They weave reed mats, baskets, wall decorations, and colorful textiles. These items often depict symbols of nature such as birds, fish, and sun patterns. Reed weaving is both an art and a livelihood. Because tourism has grown, handcrafted models of reed boats and miniature islands have become valuable items sold to visitors. These crafts help preserve traditional techniques while providing income. Textile weaving is also important. Using bright Andean colors, women create blankets, clothing, and decorative cloths. Patterns often tell stories about the lake, ancestors, or village life. OCIAL changes and modern INFLUENCS. Modernity has reached even the most remote islands. Some Uros families use solar panels to power lights, radios, and small appliances. Mobile phones have become common, allowing communication with mainland markets and emergency services. Tourism has brought economic opportunities, but also cultural challenges. Some islands rely heavily on visitors for income, offering boat tour, demonstrations, and craft sales. While this helps maintain livelihoods, it also introduces outside influences that can shift traditions. The Uros must balance economic survival with cultural preservation. Education has also transformed Uros society. Maori children finish secondary school and some pursue higher education. Many return to the islands to support their families or improve infrastructure. This new generation blends modern knowledge with ancient customs. Health and medicine on the floating islands. Medical care has historically been limited. Traditional remedies dominate treatment. Totora is used as a natural medicine for digestive issues and hydration. Plants from nearby shores provide herbs for fevers, coughs, and sore muscles. In recent decades, health clinics have become more accessible. Boats travel to pick up sick or injured islanders. Vaccination campaigns and health education programs reach the islands and the fast-moving world of modern society. Yet they continue to float, continue to rebuild, continue to sing the songs of the lake. Their floating islands speak to us across time, telling a story of adaptation, endurance, and deep connection to nature. The Uros teach us that a civilization does not need mountains of stone or vast armies to survive. Sometimes, survival is a matter of listening to the world around us, shaping what we have with care, and trusting in the wisdom passed down through generations. As the sun sets over Lake Titicaca and golden light dances across the reeds, the floating islands drift gently, carrying their people into the future. They are not relics of the past. They are living worlds. And as long as the reeds grow and the lake endures, the Uros will continue to float, a quiet, enduring miracle in the heart of the Andes.